Welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening news. Tonight, we celebrate with an education takeover. I'm surrounded by young people. From college to high school, we bring you perspectives from those who educate and those furthering their education. So it's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Thursday, April 14th, 2022, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Well, it is not Al Ferguson today, but thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens, you will see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the partnership between Happening Out Television Network and Hotspots Magazine. Hotspots is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ+ experience. We bring you the best of LGBTQ+ news, entertainment, and support of our community.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight. Nope, that's right, not Al Ferguson. I'm Dr. Tai Houser, and let's welcome Zen Nelson, a middle school student and activist for the LGBTQ+ community here in Fort Lauderdale area. As a young trans person spending their life being as authentic as possible, we have a lot to learn from Zen as they focus more on the T in LGBTQ+. Welcome, Zen. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you so much. I am also not Al, unfortunately. Let's welcome Maxx Fenning from PRISM. At just 17, Maxx founded this amazing nonprofit organization that works to expand access to LGBTQ+ inclusive education and sexual health resources for LGBTQ+ youth in South Florida. Now, at 19, Maxx is a senior at the University of Florida and serves as PRISM's president. Good evening, Maxx.
Thank you, Zen. Happy to be here and super excited because PRISM is actually gearing up for our second anniversary, the PRISMversary. It's actually going to be at the Hotspots Gallery in Oakland Park, April 30th, 7 to 10 p.m. Going to have an immersive art exhibit. If you want to get some tickets, which I highly recommend, you can go to www.prismfl.org/gala. And that's the end of that pitch. Now, let's welcome trans student advocate Evyn Almanzar. Evyn is a high school freshman that has been publicly speaking out for years. Evyn is an advocate for mental health and queer student rights, a lover of writing and nature who often enjoys both at the same time. Evyn said, quote, "On Queer News Tonight, I want to make people hear us as a student body as well as members of the LGBTQ+ community and let them know how they can help," end quote. Evyn was also a member of the Don't Say Gay rally last February. Welcome, Evyn.
Hi, I'm really glad to be here again. I think I might slightly becoming a regular. Not sure. Maybe. Seems like it.
Well,
hopefully.
You're on trial tonight.
Oh, okay. Well, we are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of Queer News for today, Thursday, April 14th.
We'll begin tonight by queering up politics. Will DeSantis' GOP new election map steal democracy in Florida? Yesterday, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis proposed a new state district map that carves up a traditionally black and Democratic district and creates a Republican advantage. The map would dissolve the state's 5th congressional district, which stretches from Jacksonville to Tallahassee along the Georgia border. The new map would create 20 Republican seats and 8 Democratic ones based on 2020 electoral data. So what do you guys think about this? The electoral districts being carved up. Is this on your mind at all?
This is, yeah, very much so. And this is absolutely ridiculous. You know, this is very clear partisan gerrymandering, which is very illegal in, you know, in our state constitution as well. And it's, you know, I think that DeSantis knows that this is illegal. I think he knows that this is going to be contested, and he probably knows that he's going to lose. He's really just trying to delay things, and I think just cause a ruckus for absolutely no reason, as
Per usual.
It's his usual thing.
I read the article, and honestly, I didn't even know what to think, because it was just so insane how he was like saying that the Democratic Party is like always pushing an agenda, and I don't understand how he can do that and then go ahead and say that it's what he's doing is not gerrymandering, because what he's doing is he's getting his lawyers to do everything possible to tweak the words to try and get around it, but there's no getting around it. So if our Florida government wants white supremacist support, what are we to do? But we need to, this isn't the first time they've tried to separate the districts. And so we're going to lose several important people in our government for our state. And I feel like it's not going to go well.
Well, and that's an interesting point about this too, is that even Republican leaders are saying that this is not going to
Exactly.
this is not going to fly.
Because they've tried it before.
Well, they've tried it before, but what it's going to do is it's going to hold out just long enough to screw with the midterm elections and to screw with the primaries.
Absolutely. That's the point.
Yeah.
Right, because people need to know what candidates they're voting for, right? Candidates need to know what district they're running in
exactly.
right now.
How are they supposed to run if they don't have a district?
If this gets contested, then we don't even know how many districts we have in Broward or Palm Beach or Miami-Dade or anywhere else. And it's just to cause chaos.
I don't understand why we're fixing if we're trying to fix a system that wasn't specifically broken.
It's functioning exactly as intended. When we structure something, when we structure democracy to prop up these very select groups of people, and we allow them the degree of power and the lack of accountability to have that right to completely overtake sections of a community and break it apart artificially as means of like controlling what amount of power we are allowed to take as people. Like it's deeply undemocratic, and I find it repulsive and terrifying.
Because it's not bipartisan at all. It's specifically partisan. And how are they going to run that? How is that? It's bipartisan democracy.
Well, and the fact is that it doesn't matter when you're controlling the state legislature and the governor's mansion as well. So they can basically put through anything they want. Incidentally, this is also why we think that Texas is such a red state, because they've gerrymandered their districts so badly that they're constantly voting on the Republican ticket, whereas Texas is probably a bit more even than we think it is.
Yeah, I mean, this type of move comes from fear. It comes from desperation. Like the Republican legislature in Florida, they are well aware that they lack public support, especially on the most recent bills they've been pushing through. The abortion ban, they don't say gay bill. All of these are broadly lacking public support, but have such a small, loud, vocal, hateful minority supporting them and supporting this legislation that allows them to kind of wiggle their way into a vast overrepresentation in media and in politics.
That's what they do. They publish all of these documents and they sit back and they cross their fingers and hope that that small group of people that are in support of that bill will be loud enough, but eventually they're going to come to an understanding that they're not loud enough because that group is smaller, and we've gotten to a point in our society that we're not just going to push back for segregation and things like that we've had in the past, because we're moving forward.
So speaking of small groups of people that are making big change, I think, Max, you've got a story for us on that.
I do. Definitely. Next, let's queer up education. Colorado revises LGBTQ plus inclusion for every grade, and today's lesson is erased. In November, a committee tasked with reviewing Colorado's social studies standards recommended expanding the presence of diverse subjects to meet goals set by recently passed legislation. These proposals said teachers should make sure they discuss the experiences of disadvantaged communities like the Black, Latino, Native American, and LGBTQ plus populations in civics lessons. They also included revisions to how Holocaust and genocide studies are taught. After complaints about woke portrayal of American history and the appropriateness of LGBTQ topics, the commission has removed the diversity guidance they had suggested.
So they said first yes and then no. And it was interesting, I think a statistic that was in that article was that something like 11 participants actually created 45% of the data. So it was a really small sample.
I'm not sure how those statistics are going to really pan out if they're not reliable.
So how important, though, is this? I mean, is Colorado doing something that we see happening? Well, they're doing something that we see happening across the country. Right. But how does this impact the way you attend and go to schools?
Okay, so in my experience with education, I came out quite young. I knew who I was, and I was lucky enough. I was one of the select few queer people to have an accepting family that allowed me to exist proudly as who I was. And I'm naturally also a very vocal person. That's why I'm on the news right now talking to you. But it is an act of silence, like this type of legislation where we move queer people and queer history away from earlier segments of public schools in the hopes of completely removing it from public school education. We misrepresent history. We misrepresent how things have been communicated, and we act as though queerness is in some way corruptive or can be negatively influential upon children. It's gross.
As I'm currently in high school still, and I don't really understand how they're going to go about this, because I think it's really important because that they teach these things, because if you don't want this part of history shown just because it's ugly or it's a negative portrayal, then you don't want American history taught. You're not telling the truth. You're picking and choosing what you think is okay for these kids to hear, and they're going to grow up being completely oblivious to all of these things, and it's a very strict representation of those who don't know history are destined to repeat it. If they do not know what is going on or what happened to the people, their ancestors, their family, their community members, how are they going to know how to go about these things when we do have our government suppressing us?
Right. I think it's important to note that one of the proposals in the way in which they intended to limit this was age, right? It was to say we don't want to talk about this under, before 5th grade, or up to 4th grade, I should say. And one of the things that we heard, which we've heard time and time again when we're covering the Don't Say Gay bill, which obviously we've done plenty on the show, is we don't want kids to be learning about sex. And luckily we have, folks in Colorado that are advocating on behalf of the LGBT community and are saying, look, you can talk about LGBT history, the existence of LGBT people, the existence of LGBT families, right, without discussing what's going on in the bedroom. And you can do that, in an extremely age-appropriate way at any age that you would be comfortable talking about any two people in love or in a relationship of any variety.
Sexuality doesn't just have to do with sex.
I mean, really, it just comes from the cultural tendency to equate queer identity with, ooh, they're trying to screw our kids, or
hypersexualizing everyone.
Yeah, as a means of demeaning how beautiful it is to be queer, how wonderful and loving communities and relationships can be. It's a way of breaking up and propagandizing what we view in our cultural zeitgeist as the queer community.
I think it. Well, so 2 points. I think it is historically rooted in our culture because we come from a Puritan base, right? We have that background that has taught us to be ashamed of our gender, of our sexuality. So we constantly want to see in each other's pants because we're not supposed to. And so the more we normalize sex and sexuality, the less likely we are going to be to kind of have that shame and want to overcome that shame.
Right.
But at the same time, I'll say from a professor's point of view, education is funded by the state, and it should be. The state should want their an educated electorate. But once they funded it, they need to get away from it, because historians should decide how history is taught, not politicians.
Exactly.
Because they don't know it.
No. How would they?
No. Shall we move on, Zen?
Yeah, let's queer up religion. With 100,000 LGBTQ plus religious school students, data shows discriminatory treatment. There are an estimated 100,000 LGBTQ plus students at religious schools in the U.S. While Title IX, a federal law that prohibits sex-based discrimination, protects most students, religious schools are frequently exempt from having to follow this law. Title IX and the regulations that implement it state that religious institutions do not have to abide by the law if it would be inconsistent with the organization's religious beliefs, according to the U.S. Department of Education. This is true even if the school has taxpayer funding. The exemptions can also be applied to school housing for LGBTQ plus students, allowing the schools to block residency, particularly in the case of trans students.
So Title IX is a great bill that protects a lot of us, but religious institutions get around it for a lot of reasons. Should they?
No,
Absolutely not.
No.
And you know what? I have this very big issue because I think that what people don't understand about rights is that your rights end where they are infringing on someone else's. When you are infringing on someone else's rights, that is where your rights end. You do not have the right to, because of your own religious beliefs, to say that you don't want someone else to get, to be able to have housing on campus, right? And these things that are necessities for students, attending these universities. And I think that it's extremely. It's a sense of entitlement, I think, to really think that your rights to religious belief and respecting your own religious beliefs go so far as to infringe on other people's fundamental rights that they also have.
Okay, but just to poke this a little bit, they're religious institutions. They're not denying you or anyone the right to an education. They're just saying not at our school.
Right. I don't understand. Because I come from a religious background. My family is Catholic, and there's just always inconsistencies within these religions where I don't quite understand how they're going to preach that God is loving of everybody, and then the second someone steps into this facility, they have to tone that part of themselves down because it's not what God wants. How is that sending a proper message to other people? How are you conveying how your religion is so open and so loving, and then be so hateful towards a group of people? And it's I don't quite understand, because these people are claiming to care about the children and everything that they do is for the children, but then they go against queer kids and protecting them. And so how can you call yourself a parent if you're not going to love your child completely and just with your whole soul? Like, it's just one of those, like, I get emotional about it because it's like, as a parent, it's your job to love and care about this child, and you're going to inform and teach these other children and tell them that God doesn't like them?
Well, I don't think they would necessarily make that argument, though, but it certainly is the way the argument is received, right? It's not necessarily, how do I want to say it? It's not necessarily always the intention to share hate, but it's definitely received, and so if it's received that way, that's an error in communication. Right.
But I also think that, again, we have laws, right? We are a nation that has laws, and you can't say my personal beliefs. I personally disagree with this law, so I'm not going to follow this law, right? Like, if you are in a regular, a public school institution that receives, again, these are schools that receive state funding, and sometimes, and if you are, if you're in a regular public school institution and you personally have these religious beliefs, you're not allowed to discriminate, right? Because it's not a private school, it's not a Christian school. So why is it that the institution being Christian makes that acceptable, right? If we say I have a religious belief that I think that that I should be able to discriminate against race or against gender, we wouldn't allow that, right? Because we have laws to protect against that. If we said I have a religious belief that I think going out into the middle of town square naked and stripping and doing public indecency, that's my religious belief.
No, I don't need that image.
Well, but that's against the law, right? And you can't say my beliefs trump the laws that we have all agreed upon as a collective body, as a nation.
But we've also agreed to religious freedom, right? We're founded on that. So this is where religious freedom and
it gets confusing.
And education, Title IX, come into conflict. How do you resolve that?
Personally, I think that when we take religious spaces, which are like very, very important to the heart and soul and culture of so many people, especially in the South Florida area where we have this strong base of Latinx culture, of Catholicism, of Christianity. When we rip that away from people and we claim, no, this is our space, this is the space for people who are conforming in this way and only these ways, and if you are anywhere outside of that, you do not belong in the place that you have called home for your entire life, that you have built much of how you conceptualize of yourself, of the world around. Like, morally, it's pretty disgusting how individuals and like groups such as the church are so willing to completely cut off people's connection to their God and their community and their church on the basis of something as minimally important as their sexual orientation or gender identity. And in regard to public funding, if an institution is violating a widely upheld law stating that discrimination is not to be practiced, then they should not be paying to discriminate with my taxpayer dollars. I refuse to fund that. So we should have a complete ban on funding institutions that refuse to comply with discrimination guidelines.
Or any law, really.
I think,
Any law made by that government.
I think the Supreme Court, though, has settled on the side of the religious institutions already.
Well, yeah, that's what happens when you have a conservative supermajority and a basis in Protestantism.
Point taken. Point
Very well
taken.
said, I guess. All right, it's time to queer up the USA View. A review of efforts targeting LGBTQ plus youth around the USA. Florida is just one of the 20 states that have brought forth legislation targeting LGBTQ plus people in the first quarter of 2022. While most, if not all, of these laws will be challenged in courts, it does put pressure on an already at-risk segment of the student population. Studies have shown that LGBTQ youth already face higher health risks and suicide risks to their cisgender and straight peers. How does this make sense?
Well, help me make sense of it.
Definitely. So,
You know, we've seen, you know, I think a lot of this obviously is rooted, well, we have very, very strong misconceptions about what it means to be a trans person, and because we have gender nonconforming people that are at this table, I will not speak on those issues, and I'll give them the opportunity to do that. But you know, I think that we've seen even more so now, in particular, is this quote unquote parents' rights movement, which isn't really about parents' rights so much as the rights of a specific subset of parents, and while ignoring the rights of every other parent. You know, and specifically in regards to education and the Don't Say Gay bill, you know, they call it a parents' rights bill, but what about the rights of parents who want their children to be able to have that sort of education, right? But work, right? We send our children to school to learn because we don't have the capacity to teach them a full curriculum, right? That's why we have school. It's because that is not wholly the responsibility of a parent. We have institutions for that with trained professionals that are knowledgeable in those areas and more knowledgeable than we might be in whatever specific field that we're in. And so that's why we have school and we have education that is created, you know, by the state. And in taking away the rights of those parents to be able to have that in their education, you know, in their child's education, you know, you're conceding to this very small minority of parents, and their rights, and neglecting to address the rights of every other parent.
I think what they would argue is that, well, what we're actually doing is we're giving parents the right to make those decisions at home rather than for the school to do it. So their argument would be, well, if you want your kid to know this information or to be exposed to these things, then
it's up to you.
It's up to you to do that.
It's your responsibility as a parent to make that decision for your child.
Right.
I am not quite sure where I stand on that, because I understand it's a parent's job to protect their children and to instill certain beliefs into them through their culture or through certain identities. But it's also important to remember that your culture isn't the only one on the planet. There are other cultures around you, and there are other communities around you that need to be heard, because discrimination is based off of fear and not knowing. So if we keep raising these children to not know things, we're going to have really emotionally inept children. And how are those children going to grow up and lead our country if they're not informed about these things? So if queer kids' lives don't matter just because they're queer to you as a parent, then I don't think you should be a parent or be able to call yourself a parent.
Other thoughts?
I think that there is a need to recognize, and so I just went to a Miami-Dade school board meeting, right, where they approved the National Day of Prayer on in the school board, right, or in the sponsor of the school, and we had, first and foremost, the Florida Christian Coalition and their executive director speak, who previously in a Senate Appropriations Committee meeting that I was in said some very vile things about our community, and then the school board proceeded to congratulate him for all the work that he's done on really important topics, and I wonder what they were alluding to when they said that. But there was one person who testified in favor of acknowledging National Prayer Day by the school board. And she said, school is a safe space, should be a safe space for our children, right? And advocating for the right for them to be able to pray, which, I fully believe in religious freedom and the ability to do those things, right? And to be able to take a moment to pray or have a moment of silence or whatever you want to do on at school if you need it, right? And that's very important and useful for a lot of people of faith. But you can't say school is a safe space, right? And then for children with my beliefs, but if that child has a different belief from mine, right? If they have an identity that I personally just don't really like, it's not a safe space for them, because that's not the kind of child that I like or that I see as morally okay.
See, the thing there is we already have this recognition that school is a core developmental area for like psychosocial development in entire generations of people, in the development of communities. So we recognize that children need safe spaces, particularly in school, to have a way to explore themselves and find new things about themselves and express their cultural and personal identities, right? That's a beautiful, important thing for everyone except you. You don't deserve that beautiful, lovely part of your life. It's so explicit and it's so vile. It's directly stating you do not get to be afforded the privilege of feeling joy in your spaces. And when that type of punishment is inflicted upon a community that is already so deeply endangered and affected by poverty and homelessness and a lack of acceptance in their families and their communities, we're killing kids. When we prevent them from finding love and safety and exploration in school and intellect in school, we prevent them from finding joy in their lives when they've already been deprived of that in other areas. We endanger countless children out of generations.
When they're already high risk for suicide.
Right, and the other thing is I have this huge issue with this idea that people say we're grooming children and we're doing all of these things and this is so harmful for children. What's harmful for children is politicizing children's lives, politicizing the lives of especially queer children in schools. What do you think? You want to talk about what's harmful? How about spewing anti-LGBT rhetoric that is extremely harmful for queer kids? But again, they're not there to protect all students. They're not there to protect all parents. They're there to protect parents that think and look and act like them, and children that they want to make sure think and look and act like them. And it's this issue, right, where and I've also seen this especially this lack of care and even trying to mask the anti-LGBT rhetoric.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And this idea that at least maybe a year or two ago, right, we were in a very different situation where they would at least make the bare minimum effort to pretend that it was not anti-LGBT, right? And not universally, but in a lot of cases. And now we see with DeSantis especially, and even in this legislative session, they were so, they're like, well, that's not really what it's about. They're just trying to spin it like whatever. And they were, trying to portray that. Now it's not even, now that DeSantis has, actually started talking about it and actually specifically put an opinion out and then actually signed it, he's just going full force, right? He just spews completely vile anti-LGBT rhetoric, endangering the lives of LGBT people, which we have a story that we're about to talk about, I know, which is about that as well. And and putting these children and other LGBT people's lives in danger. That's harmful for children.
So short of forced castration, which is what I think Evyn, your proposal was, to get rid of parents altogether. But short of that, I think there's something really important here in terms of the relationship between community and diversity. And that is the fact that the more diverse a community is, the better information that comes out of that community, the better experience that is had.
The better equipped they will be for society.
Absolutely. And so by erasing parts of the community, or by stepping in front of it and saying, well, we're not going to address this, or we're not going to include this, we're working against ourselves. And we're automatically, I'm not going to say dumbing down, but I'll say dumbing down our own culture and our own future.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Absolutely. Well, next, let's queer up gay culture.
All right.
Gay dads and kids harassed and called pedophiles on Amtrak. Neil Broverman, the editorial director for print at Pride Media, and his husband, Robbie Pierce, were on a train along the California coast this week with their 2 children. They were unexpectedly approached by a fellow passenger. On Twitter, Pierce posted, quote, "Well, that didn't take long. We decided to take a trip on Amtrak with the kids for spring break. 9 hours into a pleasant ride, a man was suddenly standing next to me, shouting across me at my 6-year-old son, 'Remember what I told you. They stole you. They're pedophiles,' end quote."
This is just absolutely revolting to me.
That's
this
disgusting.
entire story. I don't know why people have to go out of their way to be mean.
How is their life directly impacting yours? That is everything that goes through my mind when I hear stories about this and when I experience things like this. How is my existence, how is their existence affecting your life? How is it directly impacting your existence? And if you know nothing about their home lives, and the only thing you see is and understand about this situation is what you perceive and what you want to perceive, what gives you the right to comment about it? Nothing. You don't have that right, because it's not your life, it's theirs.
Well, the other thing to me too about this is that these are 2 kids that needed a family, and they have a family.
Exactly.
What does this guy, whatever his name was, that was shouting to the kids, like what?
Would we rather them in abusive foster care systems?
Right. And you know, what's even more ridiculous is that they say, again, you're harming these children by being gay and being their parents. But then this man, prior to screaming at them, approached this boy when he was, their son, when he was going to the bathroom by himself, approached him and said all of these things that he was sort of alluding to when he said, remember what I told you.
Right.
And approaching this boy in the bathroom.
If anything, that's borderline pedophilic.
You want to talk about encroaching on children in a really, really,
uncomfortable manner. Yeah.
And again, this is hard. It is spurred by this extremely harmful rhetoric that we are seeing, and it's not even, they're not even making an effort to pretend that they are not homophobic. And what I've noted recently, especially because I've realized that Republicans or conservative people who specifically that are homophobic have recognized that homophobia is a term that they don't want to associate themselves with. They've recognized that that homophobic has a negative connotation that they don't want to be associated with. But then they still hate gay people
and make decisions that
and are blatantly homophobic and harass gay people for existing in their space, right? And then you say that they're homophobic and they're like, well, that's not homophobic. Yes, it is. That's been homophobic as long as the word homophobic has existed. And because they know now that it's something that has this negative connotation, they don't want to be associated with it. If you do not want to be called homophobic, stop being homophobic, and it's as simple as that. And that's something that I think is this new sort of dynamic that we're dealing with, especially, is this detachment from recognizing that.
I mean, this is what happens when we, for one, have this kind of very, very vocal minority that is like vastly overrepresented in politics, whose whole marketing strategy and selling point has become overt, direct, and highly visual bigotry. And then they also need to conduct the balancing act of, well, I know that most people wouldn't be okay if I just outright said, let's put the queers in concentration camps, But I know that I also can find support and power in a base that is fed by hateful rhetoric, that can find like refuge in that small, angry little part of themselves that is so afraid of what is not them, and what is so afraid of what they have taught is the other and is foreign and is coming to corrupt you, to corrupt your children.
Isolate the other. Makes it easier to take them down.
Yeah, it's repulsive. We are alienating and devaluing the lives of millions of people. We see that in our legislation and in the rhetoric of our politicians. And they say, oh no, it's not about that. We don't hate the gays. Look, I have a gay friend. Look, there's this twink politician that said some Nazi shit one time. Like, when we have this direct action in legislature, oh no, it doesn't translate to direct hatefulness in person. It does, though. It impacts our culture. It impacts how people think about themselves. It normalizes that degree of repulsive entitlement and hatefulness. And it says that that is okay. It signs off of that, and it enshrines that in what we have chosen to represent America.
Oh, wait, what are you talking about? We're Fox News. We're not transphobic because we have Caitlyn Jenner.
Love you, Caitlyn.
Caitlyn. So this is there are two really important things that the right and the Republican majority have working on their side. They're really good at controlling language, right?
Oh, yeah.
The Parents' Rights Bill. It's not really what it's about, but okay, that's what we're going to call it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, they had 4 years of a Trump presidency which emboldened them, which said, oh, you know what, it's okay to do these things because that's the leadership that we have. And so moving forward, the only thing that we can do is try and reclaim the language, call them out on their empty phrases and their misleading language, and then vote, right? And I know that, I think, Max, you're the only one old enough for you to vote.
Yeah, I can vote in the next election, but that's
well, get yourselves out there. Next, we're going to queer up the world view. Historic broadcasts of Queer News Tonight coming to Italy. Join Queer News Tonight starting April 20th as we make history. The news broadcast is going global as anchors Al Ferguson and Faye Watt report the news from some of the most famous locations in Rome and Tuscany. You won't want to miss it, daily at 8 p.m. Eastern. Watch this.
We have historic news that has never been done in the LGBTQ+ community before. Queer News Tonight will broadcast outside the United States starting next week. Faye, you and I will report the queer news of the day. Are you ready? I'm going to give you a little clue. La Dolce Vita.
Oh my God, the sweet life.
Yeah, that's right. We are going to live the opening of the movie Under the Tuscan Sun, and off to Italy we go.
I get to be Sandra Oh. You get to be Diane Lane.
Okay, but in Rome, I'm finding Marcello, and we're going to Positano.
Starting next week, we will broadcast Queer News Tonight in some of the most beautiful cities in the world.
We are going to be broadcasting daily at 8 p.m. in Rome. Ready for this? The Vatican, Tuscany, under the David in Florence.
Ooh, I want to be under the David. At the Plaza of Miracles, in front of the Leaning Tower in Pisa. The villages over the Mediterranean, in Cinque Terre, and on the Grand Canal in Venice.
And a whole lot more.
The food.
The men.
The history.
The men.
Okay. We get it. The men. All right.
We are traveling with a delegation of over 60 from Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church, on their first ever Global Fellowship Program.
You'll see the gay sites, meet the LGBTQ+ people, and of course, keep up with the queer news of the day.
Follow us every day at 8 p.m. in Roku and Apple Television starting Wednesday, April 20th.
As Queer News Tonight celebrates the sweet life in Italy. Nothing like this for the LGBTQ+ community has ever been done before.
We prove it again. Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight is literally out of the closet and into the headlines. In Italy, watch.
Ciao,
Bella!
I'm jealous.
I was gonna say Al and Faye getting along. That never happens.
I think they had a little too much wine.
Yeah, must be that Italian scenery must really be quite magical.
No, it elicited a visceral reaction out of the both of them. They had to.
What did you say about Al?
That was the most alive I've ever seen Al. And Al, I love you, but the men.
The men.
Well, I think it looks like it's going to be an absolutely smashing good time, and I'm jealous that I'm not going to be there. But I look forward to future travels. I understand there are some things that will be announced soon.
Oh.
Stay tuned.
The suspense.
I know.
Right? All right. Next, we report on our partnership with the Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine in supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ plus religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Watch them.
I'm Michael Reardon, the Director of Marketing for Compass Community Center, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, thank you so much to Sunshine. That is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share this news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast to the many groups of which you are a member. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends. Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these LGBTQ plus stories in motion and in sound. That is the passion of the Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Dr. Tai Houser, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, a fine group of people, I think you all did a great job tonight. Thanks for being here with me. Reminds me why I like being in the classroom. The anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Zen Nelson, Maxx Fenning, and Evyn Almanzar. Sorry.
Whoa.
Sorry, That was me filling Al's shoes. We'll see you daily at 8 p.m. But before we end our show, we have one final story.
Let's queer up the big interview. Mark Kent of the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida says, let's misbehave for a good musical cause. The Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida will be celebrating their big fundraising gala brunch on May 15th. Themed as a Roaring 20s speakeasy, the whole party invites us to let's misbehave for charity. Watch this.
Well, next up on Queer News Tonight, we have a very special interview, and we're going to welcome Mark Kent, the Executive Director of the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida. He is responsible for leading the business side of this chorus as it continues in its evolution as a leading regional asset and a national influence in both the LGBTQ plus communities and the choral arts movement. Welcome, Mark, to Queer News Tonight.
Thank you, Alice. So great to be here.
We always joke. Let's get the joke out on you're a choral group. You perform. Anything happen in the last couple of years that we should be aware of to update us on?
I think there's a little bit of a global thing, like a pandemic.
Yeah, China. Absolutely. It must be, I've had some experience in being a member of a chorus for a little while, although I just couldn't keep up with the rigorous demand that I wanted to commit to South Florida's Gay Men's Chorus. You've been in a situation where it's been even hard to get together in pandemic, much less perform.
Yeah.
What's the experience been like for you? As the executive director trying to keep it all together, what's your experience been for the last couple of years?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you use the expression, keep it all together. Because this thing happened to us, and come to find out, singing is absolutely about the worst thing that anybody could do during the pandemic.
Yeah.
The amount of aerosol that's emitted is substantial.
Yeah.
And we were left unable to sing, unable to get together, and we had to figure out how we could sustain not just our operations financially, but how are we going to sustain our relationship with the community when we couldn't be there with them.
Wow. That sounds daunting. I don't want to be the executive director of the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida. It's interesting to me because if you have not seen the chorus, it is something to behold. First off, you're one of the largest choruses in the United States. I read somewhere recently, you're the largest gay men's chorus in the South.
Yeah, in the southeastern United States, we are the largest gay men's chorus, and operations-wise, we're about the 8th largest in the country.
8th largest, that's amazing. And that's about 150 voices?
We've got a little over 130.
130 on the roster. And there's hundreds of choruses around the United States and around the world. I've been to your international event a couple of times. A lot of people don't realize that this giant chorus is sitting here in South Florida. Tell us a little bit about what you do, why you do it,
Sure.
why you're here.
The whole gay choral movement came about as a means for us to come together and really strongly initially to mourn what was happening with the HIV crisis. So many people were being lost, and there was a sense of loss and a need to connect and find strength, but that was also in the wake of growing anti-LGBT sentiment. And there's something about coming together in the unity of song that allows us to express who we are, not just with words, but with emotion. And LGBT choruses really have become the storytellers of our community and what that whole experience is about. And being involved with this organization and seeing the great work that the guys in this chorus do, and Gabe, our artistic director, makes me incredibly excited about the future, even as recent new challenges have cropped up.
If you haven't seen the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida, let me tell you, you're missing something. They've come back in 2022, and they've come back in a very big way. And interesting here in South Florida, we always joke that South Florida is the gayest place on planet Earth. We broadcast here. Mark Kent lives here, so we automatically check gayest place. But a lot of people would be surprised in our community where other communities around the country have a chorus. We have 3 different gay men's choruses here in South Florida. It's amazing. And then Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida here being this gigantic organization. You do multiple concerts through the year. Tell us a little bit about what you do. What do you plan during the year, and how do you perform?
We really try and reach out and serve the community through our main stage concerts and through community-based performances. We do 3 main stage concert series every season, one during the holidays, one in March, the spring, and then...
and I understand your holiday concert is what? It's kind of like in the lunchroom at Wilton Manors Elementary School?
Well, yeah, kind of. Yeah. Well, we're really lucky to continue a long-term relationship with Sunshine Cathedral and do a performance here. But the big splash for us in the holidays is at Hard Rock Live at Seminole
Hard Rock
Hotel.
Live, right.
Hollywood.
That's amazing. The Gay Men's Chorus performing in Hard Rock Live, just simply amazing.
They've been incredible and welcoming to us and incredibly supportive.
Yeah, Simo does a great job. And you just kicked off your season at this little tiny place called the Parker Playhouse. I came. It was a beautiful event. Why the commitment to be in places like that? Sunshine Cathedral, Performing Arts here, Parker Playhouse, the Hard Rock Live. After all, we're just, gay chorus. Why the commitment to do something as splashy and spectacular as that?
Well, part of it is the demand is there. We need to be able to accommodate easily 1,000 audience members, per concert series, and in the holidays we've got to accommodate about 2,500 audience members. So that has a lot to do with it. But also we want to be in different segments of the region so that we can reach more people. And we feel that, larger venues have a way of drawing attention to LGBT arts groups like ours, so that there's greater public awareness.
One of the things that surprised me when I started to learn about the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida is that you're involved, you sing the covers, you sing the choral music that were popular for LGBT, but this is also a very rigorous musical standard, and even to the point where you're commissioning your own music. Tell us a little bit about what goes into that experience.
It's so interesting. When people think about music, they always think about the performer. That great singer, but somebody put together those words and put together the entire composition and brings it together into incredible material that is then performed by a performer. We think it's important to continue to feed that side of the equation too. So almost every year we commission or co-commission a substantial new work that we bring to South Florida. And it's one of the great contributions, I think, that we make to the overall cultural tapestry.
And you work together with other great choruses in the United States: Washington, Boston,
Los Angeles,
San Francisco, Seattle. Any of those you absolutely, being South Florida, you absolutely hate? You can just whisper it into my ear. Which chorus do you really hate?
If I hate them, it's only because they're just so fantastic.
They are so fantastic, yes.
And I mean that seriously. There's a group of the 12 largest LGBT choral executive directors who get together on a regular basis over Zoom and then once a year in person.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And it is a remarkable group of visionary people. Yeah. I feel very lucky to be a part of.
A lot of people also don't realize, I put in front of you, if you haven't participated in going to one of the concerts of the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida, you're really missing out, because I think you don't understand the quality of the presentation that takes place. I have seen you have performances where you'll have a lot of performance in Latin, and then Lady Gaga and Madonna all in the same evening, and it's a challenging repertoire. To be good in Lady Gaga, you got to be really good. And people think, oh, it's easy. It's not easy.
Well, there are a lot of gay men who got Lady Gaga down.
Are you one of those? By the way?
You know what? No, I'm more of a Bette Midler kind of guy.
Are you? So. Okay. All right. Let's talk about your role as executive director.
Sure.
I want to come back to the issue about our 501c3s. Happening on Television Network is really passionate in our voice support of our community, especially our 501c3s. No one in America has taken it harder on the chin than our nonprofits. Okay. And because LGBT is a niche, even more so. United Way is probably going to be okay. But in LGBT, we've really taken a deep and hard hit, because all of the services that are provided through our not-for-profits and our 501c3 organizations had to survive this pandemic. Help viewers understand how difficult this has been in terms of the interruption of the normal business. You're not a business, but it takes money to operate and serve our community, our LGBTQ community. Tell us what that experience has been like.
All of a sudden, I think all nonprofits, all our LGBT nonprofits, found themselves faced with the challenge of having to try and deliver limited services and stay true to their mission, and do that with staffing that had to be reduced, and those that stayed behind were paid less in many instances. Programs were shut down and halted. It was about drilling down to the core of who you are as an organization, figuring out what you absolutely needed to survive, and then white knuckling it and making it through.
White knuckling.
Yeah, it is the time when board members really had to become involved in a very hands-on way. And it's also an opportunity when community funders, like our fund, who really came behind the LGBTQ community as just a life preserver.
Incredible support.
It was just amazing.
Savior support in some instances.
Absolutely. And I think I could tell you that we made it through, the nonprofits made it through, but we didn't do it on our own. The community pulled us through.
Yeah, that's great to hear. It's interesting to me as we watched. We never missed a broadcast at Queer News Tonight. We never missed a broadcast of Sunshine Cathedral through the entire pandemic, and other kinds of things that we never. But it was a struggle. And when we were reporting and we were talking about what was going on in our community, we couldn't go to our bars, we can't go to our restaurants, significant spikes in unemployment and PPE and all kinds of the different things that we reported on. It did not go unnoticed that our LGBTQ nonprofits were still trying to find ways to deliver the services, whatever the services were for community, and continue. But I kept thinking as I watched what we went through, does everybody realize what the loss of our community, what would happen if we lost SunServe, if we lose the chorus, if we lose our pride organizations, if we lose our AIDS services and health services organizations? The loss in the LGBTQ community from our 501c3s and nonprofits would be gigantic. And people might not understand that music serves a core role in our community. Did that help keep you going, or did you just go, sometimes, I just can't do this anymore?
There's more than once that literally I would have to look at my desk and go, is this going to work? Are we going to make it? Music is vitally important. It is, everybody sings. Now, some people may not call themselves a singer, but everybody sings because I believe it is a core expression of the human spirit. It is why during the shutdown, people sang from balconies and connected by playing music instruments. And there's something about it that strengthens us, sustains us, gives us hope, and lets people know who we are and where we're coming from.
Yeah, and nowhere greater than in LGBT, because after all, we embrace the arts and the culture of the arts and the music and Broadway and Madonna and right, etc. And to that point, in terms of the need of support, a call to action, you have a gala event coming, and I want to talk a moment about that. And it's going to be May 17th. It's called the Brunch Gala. And you have a very clever name on it. It got my attention immediately because I embrace the philosophy of your theme, let's misbehave.
Yes.
No, wait, what are we talking about here?
What kind of a fundraiser is
this?
What
kind of fundraiser is this? We're showing it to you. It's going to be at the Westin?
It's going to be on the Westin. It's on Sunday, May 15th.
Oh, May 15th.
May 15th.
Sorry. May 15th.
And, our gala fundraising brunches are really popular. We have 450 to 500 people whenever we're able to do them in person. And we chose Let's Misbehave because the overall setting is going to be a Prohibition era speakeasy.
Oh, we're talking about the 20s.
Yeah.
I get it.
And we wanted, we wanted to go back to the music of that time period, but we feel like people are in the mood to have a good time right now.
Yes,
Things have been heavy and serious.
We're in the process of just kicking those doors open. And
So come out, let's misbehave, let's have fun. The bar will be going, the auctions will be going.
There's going to be alcohol?
Well, just for those who want it.
Yes, well, there was prohibition, so apparently we're not going to completely follow the Roaring 20s.
Yeah, well, that's why it's going to be the speakeasy complete. We hope if the construction works with a little door and a password to get you in, and then the party.
You're going to slip that to me later.
You better believe it.
So May 15th at the Westin Fort Lauderdale Beach. How do you make reservations for this?
Just go online to our website, www.gmcsf.org, Game and Chorus South Florida, GMCSF.org, and it's splashed right there on the front page. You can't miss it.
Excellent. and I encourage you, make sure that you go. There has never been a year. The course has existed how long?
We're in our 12th season right now.
12th season of the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida. There's never been a year where you're needed more for the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida than right now. And this is the way you can help give back. And we encourage you in the same way, support our 501c3s and our nonprofits. Then the other big thing that's coming up, we're heading full steam ahead to Pride Month. It's going to be the first real return to a Pride Month. We had a little bit of an experiment last year in 21, but this year it's going to be all out, and the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida is going to be all out for that too. Tell us a little bit about what's going to happen June 24th and 25th.
Yeah, we can't be a Gay Men's Chorus and not do something during Pride Month, and we've got a really special concert coming up this year. You mentioned the commissioning work that we do, and we're doing a concert called Unbreakable and Unstoppable, and the first half of the concert is a piece that we co-commissioned with a Broadway composer, Andrew Lippa, and it looks at chapters of LGBTQ plus history starting just about the early, 21st century, and it hits major chapters looking at key leaders and celebrating, the momentum and the strength and the heroes that got us through some really, really difficult times.
Sounds fantastic. The event, we're showing you the image right now, Unbreakable and Unstoppable. What two great words to combine with a Pride concert. And with these two concerts, we should get in June 24th and 25th, right here at Sunshine Performing Arts Center. We have a great partnership here of cooperative work together. We support Sunshine Cathedral. We support the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida. The concerts here are at Sunshine, and Sunshine's support of the chorus and vice versa. It's a great combination of working together. Now, will these two concerts follow what I have seen through the years, where the first half is one chromatic theme, and then the second half you just go gay as all get out?
That's going to be particularly true on this concert, because the first one does take that historical look, and there are some really great shining moments. The music is very Broadway musical sounding, as you would expect from Andrew Lippa, but when we were thinking about where to go after that in the second half, we said it's got to be crammed full of gay anthems.
Yeah.
It's got to be about the celebration and the triumph and the music that got us out on dance floors and feeling great about who we are.
Yeah, and if you haven't been to a Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida concert, let me put it this way. So you have 130 voices on stage, you have some choreography. Think about Sunday afternoon at Hunter's with great mix music. Well, the chorus does the exact same thing. They're mixing anthem music all together, and they'll move seamlessly from one song to another song, mixing and going back and forth. It's really very motivational in terms of hearing live voice do this. It's a very unique experience that you can't get anywhere else. The only place you can get it is in that live concert. Mark, we wish you all the luck.
Thank you.
You're optimistic about this year?
I'm incredibly optimistic. Yeah. Again, the community is coming out and supporting us still. The attendance at our March concert was greater than what we expected. It was really, really strong.
I walked into the room, and that was my first words out of my mouth to the friend that was with me is, wow, there's way more people here than I was expecting. That's a good sign.
It is. It means people want us back. They want what we do.
Absolutely. Well, if you haven't been before, you got to go. If you've supported through this last decade of concerts and activities of this vitally important 501c3 serving our LGBTQ community, it's time to come back. COVID and the pandemic is not over, but it's become endemic, and it means we have an obligation to help our community. And one of the best and greatest ways that you can do that is come May 15th to that Brunch Gala at the Westin. It's going to be so much fun, and then support the Pride concert that's going to take place here at Sunshine Performing Arts Center. Mark, all the luck. We're cheering you every step of the way. I hope you can feel the community standing right lockstep. I
do, including it's happening out, and you. What an incredible service you're providing in terms of reaching out and doing all you can to help nonprofits, the LGBT nonprofits.
We're there because we love it and we support our community. Marquette, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
It's my pleasure.
Tonight. LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Lara are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBT